Hello everyone, it's Richard Lewis here with another video. Today I'm going to be following up on a report I did over at my website, rlewisreports.com, which gained a lot of traction, and therefore we're going to be talking about the upcoming Overwatch League that's going to certainly capture the hearts and minds of everybody in esports. Capture their wallets too, I imagine, because people are looking over at it thinking this could be the next big thing. And certainly Blizzard are hoping so, but I've got some doubts. I've articulated these doubts. I've been in esports a long time, and I got to say, this is not quite the traditional route of creating a successful esports title. You're kind of putting the cart before the horse. But anyway, we'll get into all of that in a second. Let's just start with the report. I'm sure some of you saw this. This is Have Blizzard Landed the First Two Big Names for the Overwatch League, written by myself. And this was basically just confirmation that I'd heard these rumors that everybody knew. I mean, everybody verified this as soon as it came out. It's just nobody wanted to go first because everyone's scared of Blizzard pushing you out. I don't care. It's been made abundantly clear I'm not welcome. So that's all right. I guess I'm free now to talk honestly and openly about what's going on with the Overwatch League. So basically, this was the confirmation that Robert Kraft was going to come in, and Stephen Ross was going to come in as well, that they'd verbally agreed to have slots in this league, and there was talk that the amount of money that was going to come in from both of these was in the $15 million to $20 million range. ESPN's Jacob Wolf did a follow-up report on this that kind of talked about the nature of the agreement, which is, you don't get any kind of cash returns, cash share, revenue share returns until 2021, and yet you're putting this huge amount of money down. Now, of course, this is because they're using this money from these huge sports brands as basically the running costs for the league. And that's how Blizzard is going to mitigate the risk. We're going to persuade a bunch of people with loads of money to invest, and then we're going to delay the revenue share. That gives us a good bulk of time to build the league up, make it successful by hook or by crook, and then we can all start sharing the spoils, the dividends. It's a long-term strategic partnership, but right now, the investors are the ones taking all of the risks. If you get in on the ground floor, if you're a big sports brand looking to get into esports, there are a million more cost-effective and viable ways to do it than dumping 20 mil into a league with no proof of concept. I mean, I'm going to do a video about esports consultants. Nobody worth their salt who knows the esports market is going to tell you this is a good investment. And I'd love to know what methods Blizzard are using to persuade people this is a good investment. Nobody in the industry, that I know at least, believes this. And maybe they're saying differently public, but this is for all the reasons I'm talking about. Everybody wants jobs. Nobody wants to put the flag in the soil and potentially ostracize themselves from something that could be a source of work, a source of revenue for themselves. Now, the thing that really seemed to trigger Blizzard and upset Blizzard the most was in the report. I said I'd talked to several Endemic esports organization owners, and the communication had been poor. The general consensus from my sources was that they felt they were being priced out of the league. Nobody was communicating with them. They didn't really understand what their role was going to be. And this looked like a rich boy's toy, and therefore they weren't going to support Overwatch. Now, again, Blizzard seemed very upset by this. They issued a response, and this is the first sort of official statement we've had on the Overwatch League, which tells you everything you need to know really about the channels of communication, that it takes a big story leaking for them to even address the issue. And this was over at Yahoo Esports, a report by Zorine Tay. Now, you'll notice Yahoo Esports it's effectively a mouthpiece for big developers and I'm dubious about their news output for that reason, but all they're doing here is printing a statement. I can't really judge them too harshly for that. And this is what Blizzard said. They said, "We appreciate that there's a lot of enthusiasm about the Overwatch League, which is translated into months of speculation, including reports circulating unverified and wildly ranging rumors from anonymous sources about purported deal terms, team pricing, and other details. We understand the interest in the rumors. We feel it's important to clarify some of these things for our community." Now, let's be clear. These aren't rumors. You know, I'm a credible journalist in the space. I've got a source network, probably like no other journalist in the space. And if you didn't want to believe me for whatever reason that might be, I don't know why it would be. I think my record by now, after however many years, you know, I think it's past a decade, I think it should speak for itself. But if it didn't, there's other journalists who very much moved into the space and attached themselves to it and done good work. And you've got guys like Slasher, who's endemic to the scene. He's coming out and confirming these rumors. Jacob Wolf confirming these rumors over at ESPN. These aren't rumors. This is what's happening, all right? So this is what developers do when stuff breaks they don't want. They don't want to give out-and-out denials, but they like to frame it like maybe we don't know what we're doing. We really don't know what's going on, actually. In fact, our sources are pretty impeccable on this. So first, we want to be clear that our ultimate goal is to create an exciting Overwatch esports ecosystem, the pinnacle of which will be the Overwatch League, that's accessible to a wide audience, sustainable, and rewarding for everyone involved. We're doing our best to take care with building this ecosystem, and as with much of what we do, we don't release information until we're at a place where it makes sense to do so. Well, it wouldn't make sense to be releasing information for the benefit of all of the endemic esports organizations who want to know whether or not it's worth picking up a team, where they factor into it. And actually, as we're going to show, a lot of teams are walking away from the league because you've been absolutely silent. It would have made sense to be talking about this months ago. You haven't done that, Blizzard. Second, we'd like to dispel any rumors that we're ignoring endemics. This is where it gets very interesting, because this is an active denial about what I've been told and what I've reported. Anyone who knows Blizzard understands how deeply we care about the communities around our games. Not the same thing, by the way. The league is built upon the best elements of endemic esports programs and traditional sports, and we're in active discussions with many teams and owners from both worlds, because it will take a village to stand up a league with such an unprecedented structure. These conversations have been going well, and there's a lot of excitement around our ambitious plans. And then, of course, this is the classic line. Finally, it's important to think twice about statements from unnamed sources who may try to leverage the media to deliberately spread misinformation as bargaining tactics or for other competitive reasons. Valid point, I suppose, but the implication being you can't trust anonymous sources. These people would probably speak on the record if they didn't think Blizzard were going to be vindictive, which of course they would be. We look forward to officially sharing real details about the league. Again, the implication being that these details aren't real, they are, and the ecosystem as a whole as we continue the development process. In the meantime, we are staying focused on a goal of creating an awesome Overwatch esports experience for players, partners, and fans. We want to thank everyone for their continued support. So let's get back to the second point. I mean, first of all, I think the term "it takes a village to stand up the league" kind of belies exactly the role that endemics are going to play. Let me tell you, from somebody that's been around the development of this league, talking to owners and other people since this league was announced, the idea that endemics have been treated equally is completely absurd. It's an absolute fabrication. To give you an example of just how ridiculous some of the treatment for endemics have been. Blizzard told endemics, don't sign a team. And you're like, well, why on earth would you do that, Blizzard? Because surely you want your game to flourish and develop. They told endemics not to sign a team because Blizzard wanted to have a draft. They want to have a combine. They want this to be part of their seasonal pageantry, if you like, around the league. So they told owners, don't lock players into contracts now because we, Blizzard, will probably have to buy them out at a later date, or some of our partners will, and we'd rather not go through that inconvenience. And obviously that means that the endemics that don't sign people don't get buyouts, right? So it saves someone some money. You decide who it's going to be, but it also prevents endemic organizations from profiting from their support of Overwatch. Why would you tell endemics to do this? And it's because you do not care about endemics. You don't care about their involvement in the game. You don't want them to inconvenience the grand vision for your league. What is that? These are the people that are going to build your game. So why would they do that? You know, and again, they can come out and deny that. It's true. This is what happened. And there'll be many owners probably who catch this video and they're going, yeah, well, I wish I could talk about it. I'm still fingers crossed that I can slide in through the crack in the door, because people will want to be associated with this league if it can be on their terms. I got news for the endemic people. Absolutely not. I've spoken to many people internally on the development of this league. Just to be clear, they said that what they want is in the very top tier of this league. What they want is the big, huge sports brands external to esports to be the top tier. So when they say it takes a village, how I envision this playing out is endemic esports organizations might be in feeder leagues, lesser leagues. There might be one or two who are allowed in. Understand as well, there's some sort of weird stipulation around branding. So you have to take the city name, regardless of whatever your brand. So let's say, for example, you were, I don't know, Team Liquid, and you'd done a deal with Washington. Would you be the Washington Liquid? You know, you've got to work Washington into the name. Now, that works for existing sports brands. Doesn't necessarily work for esports brands that don't have a geographical location. In fact, one of the great things about esports is it transcends that geography. Now, how's that going to be worked in? Right now, I can tell you there's still in discussions about that. But you can see immediately how a stipulation of that nature, should they agree to go through with it, plays to the traditional sports brands and certainly not to esports brands. I think the other thing as well, you know, is again just lack of communication. When they extended invitations to this auction to bid for spots, which was they basically invited a bunch of high-profile sports owners to come and listen to pitches to get into the league, those invitations were not extended to endemic esports organizers. The rationale behind this being that you guys know what the Overwatch League is going to be all about. I mean, they didn't, but they were trying to sell it like, look, these guys are new, so we need to talk to them first and foremost. Well, nobody knew what was going on with the Overwatch League. So all of these teams have been out there and they've tried to do what they believe is right for the league for Blizzard, and it just seems ridiculous. And as I said, I worry very much about that term, it takes a village. I think the guys will be in the village while all the sports brands and Blizzard themselves, they'll be in the city, right? I think that's how they envision it in their mind. So let's just take a look at some of these things that have been going on. Now, we've had a spate of organizations dropping competitive Overwatch teams from their rosters, from their business models. And this, to me, implies that, again, Blizzard don't really understand the organic nature of any esports scene. You can't force it. You can't simply just say, hey, we've got a bunch of brands coming into the space. You might have a very strong casual player base, but let me tell you, converting a huge player base into a sustainable esports league, a sustainable esports business, something that people are going to tune into, people that something that organizations can justify having teams for, very different thing. If you look at League of Legends, their overall conversion from the casual player to the hardcore esports fan is pretty poor, and they're the most successful in the space at doing it. When you've got a player base of, they say, 100 million players worldwide, and we're still kind of only getting, for just a regular league broadcast at least, 100 to 250,000 viewers, and even when they have those huge numbers and they go, look at all the millions we've got watching, That's still a fraction of your player base, and that even includes people who maybe don't even play the game. So conversion rate is incredibly poor, and I'm interested how Blizzard are going to tackle that issue. Now, I got a copy of this Morgan Stanley report everyone is, talking about. This Morgan Stanley financial report, by the way, is absurd. I've shown it to multiple people in the esports space. Everyone's laughed at it. The numbers on which they're basing the success of the Overwatch League, the bull case as it's referred to in this document, and I'll do a video breaking it down. I'm gonna put their numbers out there so you can see for yourself how funny it is. The numbers are based on things like League of Legends and Counter-Strike and not Overwatch itself. There's a number where they talk about viewing figures and the like. For the bull case to be true, we would need 12 million people watching in the playoffs. That's getting on towards half of your entire player base. It's just not feasible. It's not, these numbers aren't grounded in reality. And this is what happens when you get esports consultants and business types talking about a space they do not understand, talking about a industry they've never been involved in. I mean, they compare the Overwatch League to WWE in this document. They think that's a good comparison. They don't understand, think about how long wrestling's been going on and how WWE was built up, and it's just absurd. Anyway, so look, these small organizations, it makes sense that they're going to cut stuff out. Now, Splice removed their Overwatch team. I'd show you a link to this at this juncture, but the owner of Splice is a bit of a narcissist, so rather than just do a press release, he decided to do a video of him with a tree behind him, like whimsically talking. I don't understand why he did that, but whatever. To hell with tradition, I guess. But you can see here, an organization I do have a lot of respect for, been in esports a long time. Pretty much the blueprint for successful esports organizations in North America, whatever you think of how they're doing right now, and that's Complexity. And you see, this is the announcement, Complexity, from just earlier this month, saying we're taking a step back from Overwatch to evaluate the game's developing competitive landscape. So they made all their players free agent, and they said here, anticipation of Blizzard's upcoming Overwatch League and uptick in mainstream esports attention means that now, more than ever, we have to be confident we're making the best investments in each game. The decision to part ways with the long-term members of our organization is never one we take lightly, but ongoing roster instability has resulted in inconsistent performance in an already narrow field of events. I mean, this is another problem that Blizzard are contributing to. This lack of information, lack of communication, lack of certainty. An Overwatch roster lasts about as long as a fucking sandwich around me. They're over pretty quickly. And why is this? It's because there is no goal. We don't know what the end goal is going to look like, whether people are going to be allowed to be involved, whether endemic esports organizations are going to be involved. There is nothing to work for. It's just a group of people playing with each other for as long as they can tolerate losing. And that's pretty much what we've got right now. Now, I'll tell you, that isn't a scene. One of my early videos as well got linked on the TF2 subreddit because I did an interview with a guy called Steele, who was kind of told, you're not going to be potentially welcome in the Overwatch League because of your background in Counter-Strike. And this guy is a very smart dude and was very vocal early on about the problems with spectating in Overwatch, which I think is still present, even if Blizzard are doing what they can to address them. He had some fantastic suggestions, which I think are now being implemented, and he would be a guy that you would definitely want associated with your league if you were looking to crack the broadcasting nut. He was the first ever professional observer in Counter-Strike. He has a very good understanding of how FPS games need to be broadcast. Well, anyway, we talked about it on a 3-hour podcast I did with him, and we talked about TF2 people jumping across for the cash grab. There's a lot of people that feel that way, and again, they'll not be vocal about it, but we know who they are, and they know who they are, and this is just a means to get money. That's what people are chancing. So it's almost kind of like the league has a potential to be successful as long as the illusion of success remains. It's kind of like saying, well, this nightclub's incredibly popular and full. Why is it full? People go there because they know it's always going to be full. All it takes is a few people to stop going and the illusion will very quickly dissipate. Actually, it's not all that good. Let's go somewhere else. So Complexity decided to drop a team, which I'm sure some people will say not a big loss. But as I said, it comes with Splice. On top of that, you had Red Reserve go as well. Now, Red Reserve, not a massive... not a massive esports organization, but they had a team in Overwatch, and you can see here that they just announced immediately that they released their team. And again, this was earlier in the month. When first looking into the Overwatch scene, we saw enough potential to give it a shot. When we acquired the former Bonkers roster, we felt comfortable with what we saw from them and decided to sign them as our first Overwatch team. However, having spent enough time in the Overwatch scene, we haven't seen the growth we were prospecting for Overwatch. The team has shown us what commitment and love for the game can achieve. They've done us proud while they represented us. We can say with confidence that we made a good decision picking the team we did. Due to Overwatch remaining a relatively small esports title in Europe compared to North America and Asia, the decision came to put our focus in different titles such as CSGO, Call of Duty, and FIFA. And it says here whether or not we'll continue in the Overwatch scene is yet to be decided. So you're like, okay, well, they're talking regionally then. Esports don't have to succeed in every region. But I would argue if you don't succeed in the European region, I think up until recently at least, Europe's always had the biggest marketing budget for esports. It's always had the biggest audience. That might have changed recently. I'd need to see the statistics, but it was always the case. So... all right, well, Red Reserve, that's not a big deal. Let's start talking about some of the bigger organizations that are bailing. Denial Esports bailed as well. They announced that it was a tweet. Reunited, that whole organization kind of went under, and they were predicated on pretty much their their Overwatch esports output. So I'll just show you that just so I'm sure you know about it. But Reunited went at the start of the year. And again, they talked about the Overwatch League and again, that uncertainty. So this isn't something that's new. They just, again, that uncertainty contributed towards the non-existence of that team. Now, when we talk about esports and big brands, here's a couple of names that I'm sure you're going to know. Team Dignitas, the most successful UK esports organization of all time, a brand that has already sold to a big external esports partner in the form of the 76ers. And again, just a week ago, Team Dignitas parts way with an Overwatch squad, saying they're all free agents, and they said they're still committed to the game of Overwatch, remain optimistic about the long-term opportunity, but again, they've released the team because what is the point in having a team now? What is the point in paying a salary for a team now? What is the point in going through the pain of just general roster management, team swaps, conflict mitigation? What is the point in investing resources into something where you don't know where the end goal is going to be? There isn't a point in that. And the key narrative here that should be dropping into your minds here is that all the endemic esports organizations are removing opportunities for pro players to ply their trade, settle, earn money. These are evaporating, these opportunities. Why is that? And how is that a good thing for the organic growth of an esports or an esports title? It's not. None of these things are good. This is all alarming. You might say, oh, but look, New England Patriots and Miami Dolphins are coming in, so, I guess it's just the circle of life. This isn't the circle of life. Esports is a fucking structural pyramid. And if you start taking out those small grassroots organizations, if they say, hey, we're not going to support an Overwatch team, and then the ones above it, the professional esports organizations, are like, well, we can't really justify it because we don't have any feeder talent coming through, so what's the point? Plus the big boys are here now, so we're not going to fucking, there's no point in competing with them. We don't have the spending power. And then you've got the big boys who come in and they go, right, well, and what they get is they get this swirling detritus that comes in. They pick up a bunch of people. They play in a league. Nobody's interested. There's no structure to it. The whole pyramid collapses in a very short space of time. This is an observable phenomenon. I've been around multiple esports titles. well over a dozen competitive titles. And I'll tell you, I never saw one succeed where it was like you just started at the top and you started with the big money people. Never. It just doesn't happen. Blizzard would be the first if they were able to pull this off and make a successful esport. And even if they were the first, I still think it's a very strange risk to be taken. Now, TSM, they're a huge esports brand now, one of the most successful endemic esports brands. And while League of Legends is their bread and butter and they've struggled and mismanaged in other games, they did try to get into Overwatch. And you can see here that they tested loads. I mean, they tried to get the roster right. They were trying everybody out as much as they could. And in the end, they just had to walk away from the team. This was their second time. They'd already walked away from one team after CSGO cheating revelations came out. And I imagine that, again, Blizzard wouldn't have been happy about that because they don't want you to bring your past baggage into this new glorious start. But basically, TSM have pulled out. And again, it's about this unbelievably high costs because right now, with League of Legends moving towards franchising, any organization that has built its brand on League of Legends is now being presented with a much more cost-effective opportunity in the LCS than they are in the Overwatch League. Certainly, buying a spot in the LCS will cost you, I mean, the highest one went for $1.8 million. They're talking $20 million for a key territory in the Overwatch League. You don't have to be a genius to do the math. And keep in mind, the way LCS works, you do get a shit revenue share. You're not making money off it. Some of these orgs make a huge loss just trying to get in there and stay in there. I'd probably argue the majority do. That seems to be the wailing and gnashing of teeth from the League of Legends owners. But with franchising, that's a game changer. With Tencent coming in and taking over, and they're going to fix some of Riot's serial ineptitude, it's a game changer. It is a fucking game changer. So why the fuck would TSM even want to think about the Overwatch League when doubling down in League of Legends is probably actually going to make them some money because they're the biggest brand in NA? I don't need to be in the Overwatch League if I can go and sell shirts to hungry League of Legends fan and make a sick fucking kick up because we've got the entire League of Legends network behind us. Not to mention, we can't get relegated. We can finally take risks and spend money. We don't have to worry about the bottom falling out. So there's that, right? I mean, again, the TSM thing is pretty a bit. I think that's a big deal. And when you look at reports coming through that other esports organizations are going to follow suit, as you can see here, Fnatic and Luminosity Gaming are supposedly going to be the next ones, according to this report at over.gg. I'm not seeing this huge growth potential, honestly. I don't understand what Blizzard are thinking in terms of pandering to the people that haven't built esports, that don't understand esports, just because they can cut you a huge paycheck. I mean, if you want your league to be kind of devoid of soul and substance, maybe that's the route you go. But if you want a long-term sustainable esports title, you need these brands to be building your teams. And the fact that so many are walking away from your game isn't a good sign. And I'm astounded Blizzard can try and make out that they've been in long-term conversations with them, because they simply haven't. Or these organizations would feel a bit more robust and a bit more confident in having a team. Now, I will show you this. One team owner who was very vocal about how he thinks the Overwatch League can work, and he definitely wants to support it and get behind it, is Immortals Noah Winston. And there's a particular reason for that. I'm gonna get into that now. Now, I know Noah, he's a smart kid, I like him, but he did an interview over on PvP Live, and I just want you to kind of factor this in. This is the kind of organization that's going to find the Overwatch League appealing. This is going to be the kind of organization that's going to be working with Blizzard. And I wouldn't call Immortals endemic in a lot of ways, because they're not. They're a venture capital funded brand, very young in the space, with a very young forward-facing CEO who has a great business brain, but I still think hasn't fully grasped some fundamentals about esports, because it is a unique industry where expertise and experience matters. And again, a lot of time for Noah, like him a lot. But here's this interview they did over at PvP Live with Dustin Steiner, and he says here, we don't know if we'll have a team in 6 months, which makes it sound like they're going to walk away. But what he says here is, from our perspective, Activision Blizzard has taken the kind of approach we like to see. It's a top-down structure with a big priority on building long-term partnerships with teams and of reorganizing teams as integral parts of the ecosystem. I'm not going to talk about the financial part of this, because numbers are ultimately where everyone gets stripped up, but it's well aligned with what we think are the effective long-term ways to build sustainable esports ecosystems. So first of all, just on that quote, that isn't how esports ecosystems are built. That's never how they've been built. League of Legends, which is the one everybody fucking refers to, wasn't built that way. Do you know how League of Legends got built? Do you know how we get to LCS? Let me tell you how we get to LCS. I'll give you a fucking history lesson, because some people obviously weren't around and don't know. So this is what happened. League of Legends is released as a game. I think the beta was out in 2009. Suddenly, people are playing it because it's Dota for kids. I mean, that was effectively the marketing thrust of it. It got a lot of MOBA purists very upset by that sort of, by what it was attempting to achieve. But Dota 1 was a faff on to play. It was getting old. It was on an old engine. And of course, it was still a mod, as brilliantly made as it was. And there was a market there. Before Dota 2 was released, there was a market to put a MOBA out and conquer that space. Now, it should have been Heroes of Newerth, but S2 Games handled it appallingly. League of Legends won that war. Now, in that time, what Riot did was, I used to go to small, even UK LANs. I went to LAN events all around the world. I was a traveling reporter at this time, doing event coverage. And everywhere I went, I would see figures in a scene with t-shirts, League of Legends t-shirts, going up to people, giving out free skins codes for the game, which of course was free to download. So there was no harm in doing it, no harm in downloading the game to get your freebie. There was commentators from other games, like D-Man, for example, who went on to be one of the voices of League of Legends for years. He was a commentator in Call of Duty, very good one of the best. And he moved to League of Legends because of this incentivizing. He liked the game, obviously, but there was this incentivizing here, like, come, we'll support you. Riot were very nice and kind and benevolent figures in the start. They went to every community and were like, hey, you want to try League of Legends? How can we support you? Can we give you some free stuff? Do you have a stream? Do you have a YouTube channel? Awesome. It'd be great if you could do this. They were super nice. And they built that support organically, coupling it with a free-to-play game. Then we move into the next phase, competitive teams. They reached out to organizations and were like, look, we're going to pay the prize money. We'll financially support you in this way. We're going to have, stops. We're going to have a tour at these events. They went to tournament organizers and said to them, here's the prize money. Just run a tournament for us. We'll give you admin support. We'll give you staff support. We'll make this easy. And all of a sudden, it starts appearing at DreamHack. It starts appearing at MLGs, right? And so organizations go out and go, well, fuck it. This is free prize money. This is free exposure. And Riot are helping us. So let's pick up some teams. So all of a sudden, you've got a competitive tour. Small. If you go back and watch the first, LCS, the first sort of, well, not even LCS, pre-LCS, the first competitive league games, it's really small and kind of grassroots, the one at DreamHack and stuff. Go watch them. Anyway, then what happened was we move on to the next phase, and Riot all of a sudden started saying, hey, we want to create our own league, bring it all together, make it a one-stop competitive shop. So if you now want to run League of Legends tournaments, it has to be done completely with our blessing. In fact, it won't be tournaments. They're going to be league stops. They're going to be league games just played live at your events. And this naturally cut the knees out from former partners, people who'd helped build this competitive scene for them. And this is where Riot did the heel turn, and they started fucking over every partner that had ever helped build their game, and basically saying, you're now with us, you either come work for Riot if you want to have anything to do with League of Legends, you either sign these contracts and be part of this thing called LCS, or fuck you. Right? And this is around about the same time they even started trying to say to esports organizations, you can't have a Dota team if you have a League of Legends team. All true, been talked about many times, done to death, it's ancient history. The point is, whatever you think about Riot's methodology, they didn't start with LCS, did they? They built up, and that's why it succeeded. So the idea that a top-down power structure works it's not even true within esports. It might work like that for businesses. This isn't how esports works. You've got to build up from the bottom. That's just the facts. It's never been done any other way. Even the successes that you all like to talk about, that was built through blood, sweat, and tears, and some deviousness to boot. So no, that's not what makes it. But again, Noah has come from an environment where he literally talked to a venture capitalist group funded by, I think with ties to Bitcraft Holdings. I can't remember the exact name. I should do. It's in another video. It's not really important. But basically, he talked to a venture capitalist group and got the purse strings cut and had money rain down. And now it's just about where do we go to eventually get an ROI. So something like this looks massively appealing to Immortals because that's all they know. And then he said here that, he didn't want to talk about the numbers because that's where people get tripped up. I mean, Immortals are probably one of the organizations that could maybe compete spending power-wise. That's the terrifying thing. More successful endemic esports organizations couldn't. Your Cloud9s couldn't. Even with this recent investment deal they had, where they had like a $2 million injection, they couldn't compete spending power-wise. Meanwhile, Immortals definitely could in some of the smaller territories. And it says here, one of the reasons we're not pumping out a ton of Overwatch content just yet is that we don't know if we're even going to have an Overwatch team 6 months from now. Once we're in a more stable position and we know if we're still going to be in Overwatch in 5 years, then we have a base to pump out a ton of content and build those storylines. As that exists right now, Overwatch content is pretty lacking. And I think there are good reasons for that. I think there's a good path for it once things start to solidify and improve. And this is really interesting, isn't it? Because effectively, if you read between the lines within this huge, rambling, incoherent video, my style of doing things, if you knew, this is what you get, I'm afraid. All the pieces are laid out, and I'll talk you through it probably at great length, but fuck it, put it on in the background, do your housework, whatever. Now, he's effectively alluding to what we know, that Blizzard aren't communicating. He's saying, I want to know if I've got a team in 5 years. That's not a number plucked out of thin air, is it? Because we're talking about the revenue shares in 2021. We're talking about Overwatch League being a long-term sustainable project that they don't just want to create it, and just drop it in there and then after 1 or 2 years pull out. But I've heard about these 5-year plans before. Championship Gaming Series, we got a 5-year plan guaranteed. They pulled out after 2.5, dropping $60 million into operations and completely pissing it up against the wall as they try to buy credibility. Does that sound familiar at all? So Noah is agreeing. He's agreeing, even though he's one of the kind of vocal supports. Whether he knows it or not, tacitly what he's saying is Blizzard need to communicate better and we need to know what the fuck is going on before we support your game. So how on earth can Blizzard come out and unironically say that we think we're doing good and we need a village and all the communications are good? This is a bad time for this to be happening. This should be the growth phase of your game within esports. You have a huge player base. You've just announced 30 million, right? Bobby Kotick is telling journalists there's 75,000 people capable of playing at the pro level. Nonsense, by the way. Utter nonsense. That's not true. But they're trying to make it appear that way, because why wouldn't you? It makes it sound like there's a better investment opportunity, that you're never going to be too far behind the curve if you invest. And that lie is for the benefit of the sports investors. It's a lie. There's not 75,000 pros. Just in case you think I'm making that up, that he said that, here's the source. This is Paresh Dave, reporter for the LA Times, one of the mainstream media outlets that Blizzard have been pandering to. And you can see here 75,000 players of 32 million on Overwatch to a professional level. That's just to say, hey, if you want to invest, don't worry, you'll always have the pros. You'll always have a means to compete. 75,000, it's pie in the sky, isn't it? And that makes me think a lot of the numbers are going to be pie in the sky as well. So, like I say, this should be a growth period for the esports side of the game. And instead, what's happening is people are going to be walking away and not supporting it. Now, just as well, to put this into context, I'm going to break down this Morgan Stanley report. One of the numbers in that report showed the return for players. And I want to end just on this note. Blizzard are talking about creating this huge, awesome, sustainable league. The investment costs are going to be so high. Team owners, the sports brands that they want to appeal to are going to be the primary focus when it comes to return of investment. When they broke down the numbers of what pro athletes kind of make in other leagues, let me show you. So player expense as a percentage of revenue. In the NFL, it's 53%. Right? In NBA, 45%. In NHL, 52%. You know what it was in Overwatch? 10%. So the players, again, it's not even a league that's necessarily going to look after player interests, but I guess that's something for another video. I will make it. I will get round to it because, as I said, I think right now, unless we start talking honestly about this Overwatch league, it's going to flop. It's going to fail. It's going to get a lot of people come into the esports space and then never want to come back, which terrifies me because we've worked very hard to build this space. And I don't want one company ruining it for a cash grab. Anyway, I hope all of this has been enlightening and illuminating. If it is, like, subscribe, do all that good shit, and I will see you.